After more than a week, people across western North Carolina are still feeling the impacts of Helene. 10 days later, and some people are still without running water or power. WCNC Charlotte's Austin Walker in McDowell County today with the latest there.
Much of Old Fort, North Carolina looks just like this, completely torn apart. You can see businesses and homes flooded from Thursday into Friday from Helene's impacts. This is somebody's porch just completely torn apart. It's not recognizable at this time, which means some people are having to turn towards help. And at this point, that is where one generation-old facility right here in Old Fort does what it does best. Take yourself back to when you were just a kid going to summer camp.
It really prepares you for stuff like this. We were able to get a volunteer.
Jason McDougall with Camp Grier walks around the site.
This is Beach Pavilion. This is where we do all of our all-camp gatherings.
It's everything you remember.
It's the same stuff. It's just being used in non-traditional ways.
Boxes unloaded into the dining hall.
For now and for the foreseeable weeks, this is going to be where we pass out food.
The camp commissary now stretched and free.
So whatever you need, you can just kind of walk through the aisles and get what you need.
Macaroni necklaces not strung together, just the elbow noodles ready to be given out. And the arts and crafts department.
If anything's handwritten and on a sign, it's new.
Making simple black and white signs, directing people without a home to running water where they can get a hot shower or a hot meal.
Right now, this is all self-funded. So people that have donated to camp, or like that generator, we had a GoFundMe that a person did.
So while camp looks a little different from what you remember,
it's bringing people together.
The feeling of what you take away.
This is the most community I've ever seen.
That hasn't changed. Camp Grier is accepting donations and help from volunteers at this time to help get those necessary items to those impacted families. In Old Fort, Austin Walker, WCNC Charlotte.
Tonight, efforts to clean up and rebuild after Helene we're really seeing in the early stages. We thank you for joining us for the news at 5:30. I'm Vanessa Rufus. Helene's impacts being compared now with other horrific storms like Hurricane Katrina. It left behind damage North Carolina has not seen in a century. And all the while, not even 2 weeks later, we are keeping an eye on another historic hurricane, which is on a direct course for Florida's Gulf Coast. Experts warning Milton could be the worst storm to hit Florida in more than a century. And tonight, one man is bracing for even more loss at the hands of both storms. Curtis Hubbard of Tampa says he tried to get away from Helene by heading back to his hometown of Boone, only to be pummeled there in the mountains. And tonight he's back in Tampa as Milton now threatens his other home. WCNC Charlotte's Jane Monreal caught up with him as he prepares for this hurricane once again.
Road crews in Boone repaired Pinnacle Drive well enough in the last couple of days, just in time so Curtis Hubbard can drive down the mountain and keep driving to his house in Tampa. Curtis Hubbard is getting ready to hunker down again, this time back in the Sunshine State.
Well, they're saying it's about 15 foot, and what we experienced last week was about 7 to 8 feet. So now we're just anticipating the whole first floor being trashed. And so I'm trying to get everything that I care about to the second floor.
Unlike many of his neighbors whose homes took on water during Helene, Hubbard's was spared.
I prepped here and then bugged out and went to North Carolina thinking I was going to be in a better position.
As he told WCNC Charlotte last week, little did they know they would be trapped in the mountains.
I've never heard the mountains like groan. So I'm in this little cabin and you could hear this groaning, billowing during the storm, and then it would just be like the trees are rushing and everything else is.
Now in a race against time, Hubbard just got back to Tampa late Monday night, at least comforted knowing that his friends and family are out of harm's way.
All my neighbors are gone. There's nobody left here in my neighborhood. They all left. So I'm gonna hang around for one more day, and then probably if it stays like this, then bug out probably first thing tomorrow morning and get to higher ground.
The Special Forces veteran says his time in the military has prepared him for these kinds of situations, but it still has been a surreal couple of weeks. Hubbard says he plans on cleaning up after Milton, and then we'll head back up to Boone. Back to you.
WCNC Charlotte is making a difference with your help. When you share your news tips, we go to work.
I sent you that email. 15 minutes later, you're responding to me.
When a Charlotte woman battling cancer lost her health coverage, we demanded answers.
Within hours of WCNC Charlotte asking questions, the agency responsible quickly corrected its mistake.
Let us get to work for you.
Reach out to newstips at WCNC.com. WCNC Charlotte, news that impacts you.
Tonight, a story of hope and survival after a family dog saved his 11-year-old best friend from a mudslide in the mountains. The boy now here in our area getting treatment at Atrium Health Hospital in Concord. WCNC Charlotte's Michelle Bowden spoke with the family about this traumatic day, and this is a story you'll see only on WCNC Charlotte.
This is really an incredible story. An 11-year-old boy trapped in the rubble of what's left of his home. The dog actually helped get rescuers to him. Now he's here in the Concord area where an entire nursing team has adopted his whole family.
Hello.
Jamie and Tucker have always been inseparable.
I probably would have died if it wasn't for Tucker.
When Hurricane Helene barreled through last week, that bond was everything.
It was terrifying.
The two were at home with Jamie's grandparents and sister Gemma not far from Asheville when a mudslide slammed into their house.
All of a sudden I felt the house like this, and then I saw walls coming at me.
I was on the couch with Gemma. Then the house mudslided and I face planted into a wall, like full body went flying.
Grandma ended up on the roof, but Jamie was thrown under the stairs in a pile of rubble about 12 feet deep.
It was scary. I thought I was all alone, no one else. I thought they died.
I had yelled for Jamie and Gemma and Michael. Nobody answered me. I didn't know if whatever was dead. And I was screaming my head off.
It felt like forever down there. If I couldn't see sunlight or nothing, I just felt water dripping on me. I thought I was either gonna drown or run out of air.
It was raining really hard and just flooding. And I remember seeing the little girl, but I couldn't find the boy. I couldn't find him.
Didn't know where he was.
Because I was screaming on the top of my lungs to my grandma, and she couldn't even hear me.
His best hope? His best friend.
Tucker, he was above me on top of it, and he was barking. I heard him whining and barking.
Yeah, he stayed on top of the pile and was just barking away. And I just thought the dog was going crazy. I didn't realize he had located the boy.
Tucker stayed put until firefighters arrived and used chainsaws to dig Jamie out.
Since he has a really big nose and really big ears, I think he could hear me and smell me. I thought he was trying to tell them where I was.
Jamie was flown to Atrium Health Cabarrus, where one nurse is fostering Tucker, and the rest of the team has spent their own money buying the basics for the family who lost everything, including their home.
Oh, I've been for it for over 25 years, $4,000 short of paying it off. And my idea was that it would be, paid off, and however long or short my life is, that we wouldn't have any more mortgage payment. And now it's all gone.
But they're so grateful they have each other, and of course, Tucker. The siblings had used their allowance money to pay for Tucker 3 years ago, saving the dog days before he was to be put down at a shelter.
And he was the last dog there, and when he saw us, he just ran right up to us.
So you rescued Tucker?
Yeah, he rescued me.
Right now, the family really doesn't know where to go. So even though Jamie is healthy, he's medically cleared to go home, the family is actually staying here, the whole family, in this hospital room at Atrium Health Cabarrus. Everything you see here, the entire nursing team chipped in to get them because the family lost everything. Reporting in Concord, Michelle Bowden, WCNC Charlotte.
Time now to connect the dots. When we make the news make sense. As Helene cleanup continues, health officials are warning folks to stay away from standing floodwaters. Standing water may look calm, but dangerous conditions could be lurking under the surface. Let's connect the dots. Dr. David Weber with UNC Health advises folks to take caution when entering floodwaters because the water could open the door to several infections. Doctors say something like eczema could allow bacteria in the water to enter your body. Officials say avoiding water may reduce your risk for unwanted injuries because murky waters make it hard for people to see sharp debris beneath the surface. But if you need to travel, officials suggest wearing long pants to protect your legs from that debris. If you feel sick, health officials say appointments are virtual and free of cost through UNC Health. And that is Connecting the Dots.
Download the WCNC Charlotte News app today for your WCNC weather impact forecast, breaking news alerts, and 24-hour streaming content. Download today.
It's time to connect the dots when we make the news make sense. It has been 1 week since Helene made landfall, and we're now learning just how much rain fell in the southeast.
Helene rainfall totals are stunning experts with an unheard amount of water. Let's connect the dots. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration says more than 40 trillion gallons of rain fell in the past week. That's enough to fill 60 million Olympic swimming pools. The unprecedented rainfall is credited to storms that happened before Helene even made landfall. But then, just days later, Helene dumped rain on an already saturated area. Experts say if that amount of rain fell in just North Carolina, the whole state would be under 3.5 feet of water. Experts say storms are getting wetter as climate changes. For every degree hotter, air holds nearly 4% more moisture. And with impacts of Helene still being felt across the Carolinas, it's still unclear just how deadly this rainfall has been. And that's Connecting the Dots.
This is Bloom Studios, part of the new Iron District, which used to be Charlotte Pipe and Foundry. Inside, you can actually see Earth from Earth. This awesome exhibit is called Gaia. It's Earth seen in a whole new...
A sculpture of the Earth, and it's all made out of NASA data. So it allows the public to see the Earth as almost as though they're floating in space like an astronaut.
Luke Jerem is the artist who created Gaia, a name from Greek mythology meaning the personification of Earth.
The idea is to sort of inspire people to think about the environment and how we need to protect the planet, but also to sort of uplift people's senses and give people a new perspective on the world.
Unlike the moon, which has been visible for millions of years, Earth has been seen in its entirety only once, and that was from the Apollo 17 moon mission back in 1972.
If you were to look at the moon would have to be, yeah, sort of maybe 200 yards that way for the right scale. But yeah, it will give you a sense of that. And there's going to be all sorts of amazing events taking place underneath this sculpture over the coming weeks.
Gaia provides us the chance to see our planet in 3 dimensions. And with a proper angle, you can hold the whole world in your hands or look in awe at our fragile planet.
It's amazing when you see it. You just realize how big Africa is. I mean, it's absolutely colossal. And also, there are some angles to see this artwork that you just can't see any land mass at all. The Pacific Ocean is massive. So this will give people a new perspective on our planet.
The Gaia experience is like you're an astronaut looking down at Earth. Larry Sprinkle at Bloom Studios, back to you.
Let's get back to our forecast and weather impacts at hand here. Of course, we are keeping a very strong focus on Milton, and it is getting closer and closer, we see, Brittany, to that Florida coastline.
Yeah, it looks like Sarasota in that area is still kind of in the beeline, the trajectory of the center of circulation, Vanessa. But of course, as you know, and many folks know, as we talked about it so many times, the center of circulation does not mean the impacts. These folks have been getting rain, tornadoes all day long. But the actual eye wall, once it moves in, it's the eye wall that has the strongest winds, and that's why folks are so concerned about this. 9 o'clock to me still looks like the most likely time frame that this storm would be making landfall here. A lot of heavy rain as it moves in, and then even for areas, let's say south of where the storm makes landfall. So if it's Sarasota, that means Charlotte County, Lee County. Once that southern eye wall starts to move in, just because the storm has moved on land doesn't necessarily mean they're out of the woods yet. We see a lot of heavy rain. Again, as the storm moves across the state, it will likely maintain at least Category 1, if not Category 2 hurricane strength as it moves across the state of Florida, eventually re-emerging into the coast of the Carolinas, the western Atlantic, and that's why the Carolinas, South Charleston, down toward coastal Georgia, Savannah, does have a risk here of storm surge as the storm moves across the state and eventually re-emerges. The only thing that we have seen so far in Charlotte, the only thing we will see is a few more clouds heading toward the next few days. I think that storm surge, of course, will be a big issue near the coast, but really further inland from Tampa all the way toward Orlando, Daytona, it's going to be inland flooding, freshwater flooding, and of course all of that heavy rain. Upwards of 16 inches on top top of what they've already seen. And actually, a lot of these areas saw rain already days in advance, similar to what we had during Helene just about 2 weeks ago. This evening's forecast, again, you notice a few more clouds, but overall really not too shabby. Lows will still fall into the 50s for most of the area, mid 50s for the metro, 40s up in the mountains. Tomorrow afternoon, though, a reinforcing shot of cooler air pops in as that same trough that keeps the storm away from us will filter in another rush here of that cooler air. So highs reaching low to mid 70s. Winds will turn a little bit breezy at times out of the northeast at about 10. That means gusts closer to 15. Again, a very minimal impact overall, but something we'll keep a close eye on. Here's your Gaia Roofing 7-day forecast. We see 50s overnight with more clouds. Eventually sunshine will return tomorrow afternoon. Coolest mornings of the next week come Friday and Saturday. Again, with this reinforcing shot of cooler air, often day 2, day 3 are some of the coolest. That's why we have those chillier mornings Friday and Saturday. Sunshine eventually returns in the afternoons. We could even get back into the 80s on Sunday as the Rover 400 and Bank of America will be lit up, of course, for the Panthers taking on the Falcons. And then another cool down comes heading into next week. We could even see some high temperatures only reaching the mid to upper 60s.
Weather impacts everything. Stay prepared with WCNC Charlotte's Weather Impact Team.
That is one ominous looking storm.
Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich and the entire Weather Impact Team delivers the wind.
Sunday and Wednesday are going to feel the hottest.
The impact.
Winds 60 miles an hour.
And what you need to stay safe and weather aware.
Head to the interior room, away from those outside walls and windows.
Stay aware of weather that impacts you by downloading the WCNC News app now.
And thank you for joining us for the news at 6 o'clock. I'm Nick Sturdivant. As the cleanup continues across western North Carolina, many towns have set up donation sites, some even delivering those supplies to those unable to leave their homes. Over in Elk Park in Avery County, the fire chief there says they have multiple areas still needing all the help they can get, but thankful tonight as donations continue to pour in. Ian Russell has more.
Driving down the dirt road.
Well, we had to bring in heavy equipment and open the road up.
Elk Park Fire Chief Mike Ellenberg still can't quite believe it.
Never in my lifetime, no I have not.
Memories of what used to be here, now covered in mud and debris.
Several homes were took down the river here. It used to be a paved road, houses on both sides, and they're gone.
Tucked down creeks and rivers outside the town of Elk Park in Avery County, some areas were spared when Helene came through, some were not.
You'll see some vehicles down here that are sideways, and they'll have spray paint on them, marking that vehicle has been checked to make sure that nobody was inside of it or around it.
Ellenberg says he believes there are 4 areas around Elk Park similar to this, damaged or difficult to get to.
Thank you.
But not cut off.
So get her some snack stuff.
Not with neighbors like these.
A hot meal. Asked her and we'll get her a hot meal this evening.
Connie Gwynn is making sure of it, along with dozens of other volunteers at the Elk Park Volunteer Fire Department, one of several places like this in town.
We're just trying to get it organized some because so much is coming in that we can't find nothing and neither can anybody else.
Donations have come from across the state and across the country, even help from other agencies, all pitching in to help.
It's amazing how well and good the people are helping out.
It's hard to see their home like this, but easier to get through by each other's side.
I would only say that I don't want to live anywhere else but here in Avery County, North Carolina.
In Elk Park, Ian Russell, WCNC Charlotte.
In 10 days since Hurricane Helene hit the Carolinas, and we're still getting new images like these out of the mountain communities. WCNC Charlotte's Richard Devane has been in the mountains for the last week, talking to the people most impacted by Hurricane Helene. He joins us live now to talk about the efforts in Spruce Pine. Good morning, Richard.
Yeah, good morning to you, Sarah. Good Monday morning, all. Basically, another week of things like this. Trucks full of debris hauling this away. Folks trying to clean up their lives. Happy to be alive. And in the case of one couple that we spoke to, they say they're just happy that they have an opportunity to clean up. Now, the cleanup efforts continue in towns like Spruce Pine, tucked away in the mountains of Mitchell County in western North Carolina. Water is now gone, but the damage still months, if not longer, to recover from. The entire downtown area is still covered in mud. Dozens of businesses closed, and many homes in the area area also damaged or in some cases destroyed after Helene's flood waters. Many now homeless and forced to start over. Other folks like Beverly and Joel Nelson, who we met in a hotel in Statesville, say they're some of the lucky ones. 3 trees fell on top of their house. No power, no water. They were trapped inside for 5 days, hoping and praying that somehow help would find them.
It was like, we felt like the closest thing to dying. You know, we didn't know if we'd get out. We didn't know what would happen. And the roads covered in trees, and behind our house looked like a jungle forest. All the trees had fallen, and we just begged for help.
They say at one time she heard someone in the distance yelling, "Help, Spruce Pine." We can tell you that help has been coming. They say they have a house, but they were told that those trees are on there. They're too delicate to move. They need a professional company to come and remove them to see just how bad the damage is, and that could take weeks. They say they might get electricity and things like that sometime in November. We're right here in Watauga County. I'll send it back to you.
More than a month away still. All right, Richard, thank you for that.
Question everything and verify with WCNC Charlotte. Taking questions, seeking experts for the answers, and sharing the knowledge to distinguish fact from fiction.
With this breaking news, we're seeing a lot of claims on social media.
No question left unanswered.
Police say this is true. All 4 of those shootings are connected.
Clearing up the confusion and bringing the truth into focus. WCNC Charlotte is guiding the way.
Well, thousands of folks in western North Carolina are still experiencing spotty cell phone service, or in some cases, none at all.
We've seen several posts on Facebook saying all of the cell phone towers will work with any network right now, but is that actually true? WCNC Charlotte's Megan Bragg verifies.
Cell service is continuing to improve in the Carolinas, with an estimated 80% of access to cell service in the region restored. This post on Facebook claims that if you are in western North Carolina in the affected areas, all cell phone towers are open to not just one carrier, but all of them. So is this true? Let's verify. Our sources: North Carolina Emergency Management, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Starlink. North Carolina Emergency Management says telecommunication partners have activated disaster roaming, which allows phones on any cellular network to access any available network to connect to. So we can verify that this post is true and people can access any available network to connect. Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile say this is at no extra cost as cleanup and search and rescue continue. Companies are also working around the clock to get people up and connected to loved ones. In a statement from Verizon, they say other than a few towers still inaccessible in Chimney Rock, crews have accessed all impacted sites in western North Carolina. The sites have generators and are on fueling planes. However, fiber to many sites is still out. Meanwhile, AT&T recently deployed their Flying Cow, which stands for Cell on Wings. This was deployed in 3 cities in Mitchell County, North Carolina, which connects people to family and emergency services and to receive updates. T-Mobile is also setting up stations in North Carolina to allow people to charge their devices and access Wi-Fi. And Starlink, the satellite internet service developed by SpaceX, has over 6,000 low-orbit satellites now connecting with small ground receivers, allowing people to access the internet. With your Verify, I'm Megan Bragg.
If you have something you would like us to verify, all you got to do, email us at verify@wcnc.com.
A predecessor rain event, or PRE, is an area of heavy rain in advance of a tropical system. Typically, the time frame is 36 hours before the system arrives. This is most common during the months of August and September. Sometimes the tropical moisture that drives a PRE is associated with the storm itself, but sometimes it's a completely separate entity. In the case of Hurricane Helene, there was deep tropical moisture streaming in from the storm, as well as a stalled front on the northwest side of the Carolinas. This allowed for a plume of heavy rainfall before the storm moved in, and some of that rain was fueled by Helene's moisture. The term was only coined in 2007 and is a relatively newly researched phenomena, which is why many folks have not heard it before. PREs may also lead to a secondary sensation known as the brown ocean effect. This occurs when warm saturated soil from the PRE mimics warm ocean waters and helps the storm maintain strength. This can also lead to additional heavy rain. For WCNC Charlotte, I'm meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees.
Wake up to the news that matters most with meteorologist and traffic reporter Kahi.
And we're all clear. We're keeping you smarter, safer, and on time.
Start your day the Mulcahy way. See the difference. 4:30 to 7 on WCNC Charlotte.
But first, the final sprint is on. We are just over a month away from Election Day, and today, Vice President Kamala Harris will travel to Michigan, while former President Trump heads back to Georgia for another tour of the damage. WCNC Charlotte's Alice Barr has the latest now from Washington.
Good morning, Sarah. The presidential nominees are stepping up the pace on the campaign trail. Former President Trump refocusing on the Hurricane Helene storm zone as Vice President Harris looks for supporters from across the aisle. Former President Trump heads to Georgia today to again survey devastation from Hurricane Helene as Vice President Harris travels to Michigan after rallying in Wisconsin alongside former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney.
I have never voted for a Democrat, but this year I am proudly casting my vote for Vice President Kamala Harris.
Cheney voted to impeach former President Trump over his role in the January 6th Capitol attack. Vice President Harris appealing to other Republicans to back her, arguing the former president cannot be trusted.
He who violated the oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. And make no mistake, he who, if given the chance, would violate it again.
That after a new special counsel court filing asserts former President Trump should not be immune from prosecution for his efforts to overturn his 2020 election loss. The former president calls the filing political.
This was a weaponization of government.
Rallying in Michigan last night, he doubled down on false claims of a stolen election.
It was a rigged election. You have to tell Kamala Harris that's why I'm doing it again. If I thought I lost, I wouldn't be doing this again.
Voters divided.
I think Trump has destroyed the Republican Party.
Do you think that Liz Cheney speaks for the Republican Party?
No.
Absolutely not.
Americans weighing the impact of the last election as they prepare to vote in the next. The Harris campaign is launching new digital ads aimed at potentially persuadable Republicans, while tomorrow former President Trump returns to Butler, Pennsylvania to rally at the same site where a gunman tried to assassinate him in July. In Washington, Alice Barr, WCNC Charlotte.
Right now, North Carolina is one of the top 10 states in manufacturing in the United States, with more than 8,400 companies employing almost 549,000 people.
Well, one of those companies is right here in the Charlotte area. WCNC Charlotte's Larry Sprinkle shows us how they're also helping grow the pipeline of workers.
Groninger USA, you may not know the name, but great things are happening right here, especially with their apprenticeship program. Groninger is one of the leading manufacturers of special machines for the pharmaceutical, consumer healthcare, and cosmetics industries.
For example, if you would walk into a CVS or a Walgreens and you get any over-the-counter medicine, eye drops, cough syrup, there's a very high chance that you actually get a product that has been filled on our machine.
For the past 9 years, they train on the job with a company-paid education. It's in partnership with Central Piedmont Community College. Those who take the opportunity know it leads to success. Jenny Dam is one of those in the program.
And so everybody starts out the same. Everybody has that foundation of how to work with their hands and how to use the machines. And then after that, I was able to then specialize in the actual engineering tasks.
Thomas Ray is the apprenticeship lead for the company.
Once those students train for about a year on those basic things, then they move forward and begin to go out with the journey workers on the floor.
Dario Allen became interested when he was a student at Olympic High School and has been with Groninger for over 2 years.
Any day I could be doing anything. I could be laser engraving, I could be machining, I could be putting something together, or I could be working with people I've never met from overseas. So it's never the same thing any day at work.
A lot of people thought that apprenticeships were a thing of the past, but at Grier, they're happening right now. Larry Sprinkle, WCNC Charlotte.
WCNC Charlotte's weather impact team delivers when weather will change, what impacts to expect, and what you need to stay safe.
To the interior room.
Aware of weather that impacts you by downloading the WCNC News app now.
Well, it's personal because I have a lot of my own relatives that live here, and when we heard about this, it was devastating, not just because it was my family, because all these people feel like my people. We all feel related, and we are in some sort of way. So it just devastated me just to know that we had to suffer like that. You don't want to see anybody suffering, and especially me. So anything that we can do to help, but I was heartbroken like everybody else and just amazed and devastated by it.
American icon Dolly Parton joining the relief efforts late today. The Tennessee native donating $1 million to help flood victims. The Dollywood Foundation also donating another $1 million. And alongside Dolly, the CEO of Walmart said the company will be donating $10 million in donations and grants.
Weather impacts everything. Stay prepared with WCNC Charlotte's Weather Impact Team.
That is one ominous looking storm.
Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich and the entire Weather Impact Team delivers the wind.
Sunday and Wednesday are going to feel the hottest.
The impact.
Winds 60 miles an hour.
And what you need to stay safe and weather aware.
To the interior room, away from those outside walls and windows.
Stay aware of weather that impacts you by downloading the WCNC News app now.
Let's get back to our forecast and weather impacts at hand here. Of course, we are keeping a very strong focus on Milton, and it is getting closer and closer, we see, Brittany, to that Florida coastline.
Yeah, it looks like Sarasota in that area is still kind of in the beeline, the trajectory of the center of circulation, Vanessa. But of course, as you know, and many folks know, as we talked about it so many times, the center of circulation does not mean the impacts. These folks have been getting rain, tornadoes all day long. But the actual eye wall, once it moves in, it's the eye wall that has the strongest winds, and that's why folks are so concerned about this. 9 o'clock to me still looks like the most likely time frame that this storm would be making landfall here. A lot of heavy rain as it moves in, and then even for areas, let's say, south of where the storm makes landfall. So if it's Sarasota, that means Charlotte County, Lee County. Once that southern eye wall starts to move in, just because the storm has moved on land doesn't necessarily mean they're out of the woods yet. We see a lot of heavy rain. Again, as the storm moves across the state, it will likely maintain at least Category 1, if not Category 2 hurricane strength as it moves across the state of Florida, eventually re-emerging into the coast of the Carolinas, the western Atlantic, and that's why the Carolinas, South Charleston, down toward coastal Georgia, Savannah, does have a risk here of storm surge as the storm moves across the state and eventually re-emerges. The only thing that we have seen so far in Charlotte, the only thing we will see is a few more clouds heading toward the next few days. I think that storm surge, of course, will be a big issue near the coast, but really further inland from Tampa all the way toward Orlando, Daytona, it's going to be inland flooding, freshwater flooding, and of course all of that heavy rain. Upwards of 16 inches on top of what they've already seen, and actually a lot of these areas saw rain already days in advance, similar to what we had during Helene just about 2 weeks ago. This evening's forecast, again, you notice a few more clouds, but overall really not too shabby. Lows will still fall into the 50s for most of the area, mid 50s for the metro, 40s up in the mountains. Tomorrow afternoon, though, a reinforcing shot of cooler air pops in as that same trough that keeps the storm away from us will filter in another rush here of that cooler air. So highs reaching low to mid 70s. Winds will turn a little bit breezy at times out of the northeast at about 10. That means gusts closer to 15. Again, a very minimal impact overall, but something we'll keep a close eye on. Here's your Gaia Roofing 7-day forecast. We see 50s overnight with more clouds. Eventually sunshine will return.